Welcome back, everybody, to the Just Passing Through podcast. I have been ready to murder some motherfucker this week. Murder some motherfucker. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start straight with the music, and we're coming back, and I will be talking about the summer of 1996. Fuck you, Bryan Adams. It wasn't 69, it was 1996. Right, we're back. Okay, you're not going to be getting music on YouTube, them that you're watching. You won't be getting music on YouTube this time because those fuckers in California have pulled my 100% Yorkshire from YouTube. They dropped it because of all the bangers that I were fucking putting out there for everybody in last episode. So I'm dropping it from YouTube, but you can hear it on podcast. Now, the week I had this week, I had to get talked down by my friend in Tokyo, and his parting message to me was, "Too much fucking music. There's too much music. I just want to listen." So that song was for you, my friend, for talking me down off the edge. Yeah. So today, it's all about the fucking summer of 1996. Now, I don't know what your summer was like. I don't even know if any of you were alive back then. What's 1996? So people who were born in 1996 are going to be 28 next year. 20 fucking 8. Holy fuck. People who were born in 1996 are going to be older than I was in 1996. That's how fucking frightening that is. So 1996 was 28 years ago. Now, 28 years ago, I was 25. 25. And I was having the time of my fucking life. I'd moved into this house with my friend. We lived, Bradford's fucking shite. I'll tell you that for starters. You all know how many years I've been telling you. It's fucking shite. But where we lived in Wibsey, there's a place called Wibsey, and it's this little village to the south of Bradford that is just full of pubs. You know, Market Tavern, Upper George, so many pubs, Gaping Goose. And we lived on a place called Ivy Terrace. Now, Ivy Terrace was just down the road from a working men's club where you could get whole garden in 1996 for less than £1. So we got ourselves in there. We used to fill up on that and then go into Wibsey and then down into town. Now, the reason why I'm talking about 1996 is I put that down as my best ever summer. And it were as if the fucking planets had all come together just to fucking let me enjoy myself. It were a summer where everybody were enjoying themselves. Fucking hell. What's the Story? Morning Glory had been released in 1996. The music, you were listening to Radio 1 and it was just banger after banger after banger. There were no chaff. There were no room for shit in the hit parade back then. You'd have an odd Blur song, but everybody were jumping on that Blur bandwagon. But all the other bands were just sensational. You'd be walking on the street and there'd be a car going past and you'd go fucking banger. You'd walk past a pub, the jukebox would be on, banger. You'd walk past somebody's house and they'd have a record on, banger. The summer were great. I can't remember it pissing it down once. I can't remember it raining once. Not once. I mean, I was single. The fella I was living with was single. Our house was the party house. We lived on this end terrace so we could make as much fucking noise as we wanted and we didn't really have any neighbours to complain. And it was just a fucking great summer. A load of us had done a lad's holiday to, I think that were 96. Yeah. Have we done? No, that was the year after. We didn't have an holiday. England was so good at that that certain time, that none of us went on holiday because we didn't want to miss out. That's right. We didn't go on holiday. So there were about 15 or 20 of us that would always go away on holiday together. And we didn't bother that year because we knew it was going to be a good summer. Oasis had blown up, Britpop had blown up, the fucking film industry had blown up, Train Spotting had come out. Fucking Train Spotting. The only thing better than that fucking actual movie, which were fucking great, was the soundtrack. The soundtrack was fucking fantastic. And I was listening to it today for research for this episode. And it still holds up. It still fucking holds up. Underworld, Iggy Pop, fucking amazing. Amazing summer. So that we're building. I mean, you fucking look at the number ones that year. Oof. Started off with fucking Robson and Jerome. Yeah, the number ones, the shit that got to number one, weren't so fucking hot. But the stuff that were behind it, I mean, I don't know who were buying fucking records. Fucking George Michael, Robson and Jerome, Gary Barlow, and in album charts, Take That, Greatest Hits, fucking hell, that travelling karaoke machine. But all the stuff that were behind it, all this indie stuff that wasn't really mainstream, that would become mainstream after 1998, that were all the stuff, that were the fucking dirty little secret. So we had that, and then Euro 96, hosted in England, the European Championships. Now, for them of you, I know the World Cup is getting so popular now and it's blowing up around the world. The Americans are taking it on, the Canadians love it, the Australians are coming into the fold, New Zealanders too. They were the last bastions that have refused to pick up with this game, but you're coming in now. And what you'll notice is we've got the European Championships next year in summer after this season finishes. Now, the European Championships is the better competition because all the good teams, all the best international teams are in Europe. I mean, obviously in South America, you've got Italy, you've got Argentina and you've got Brazil, but that's it. There's no other country in the Americas that's going to win World Cup. So you can have that fucking argument with me till you blue in face. I'm right, you're fucking wrong. In the UK, in Europe, those are the best teams in the world. And when they all come together in one competition, that's the best international football you're going to see. There's none of this fucking chaff. There's none of the fucking chaff. And you'll see it in the next competition, the next one in summer. It is the best competition. Now, in Euro 96, it was hosted in England. It was hosted in England. So what we had to offer in England from middle of June to middle of July was the best football tournament in the world, hosted in my country with background music of British music, British films. It was the fucking Conservative government was dying. It were on its last fucking legs. Tony Blair were going to sweep in the year after, almost to the day, and fuck these stuffy old fucking knobheads, send them packing. And everybody knew that. We were building, and I were young enough, and I were full of fucking fun that I needed to get out. Because if you rewind back to only 3 years before, nothing had hit. I mean, I've mentioned it before. It were like faint rumblings you had around early 90s with EMF, Stone Roses, Jesus Jones, Suede, and you were like, well, I can jump on this, but fucking nobody else seems to be getting there with me. And I were on bins in Bradford. I were a bin wagon driver. And I was sat there in fucking rain with compactor going at back of me and lads throwing garbage in back. And I had radio on. And in excess, we're going to be playing a gig in Roundhay Park in Leeds. And they were the biggest thing really in 93. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to have to be my band. And I don't like them. I don't like them at all. And I became jealous of my parents because they'd grown up in '60s when the Beatles and the Stones did it, and the UK was the fucking centre of the universe. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to have any of that. Because if we'd just come out of '80s and all that fucking garbage of music that were coming out there, we're fucking shite. So I was genuinely worried that my 20s were going to be awful. Needn't have worried. Needn't have worried. So why I'm talking about summer of '96 is Oasis had already lit in the touch paper. The music scene was quietly bubbling away there. England had not qualified for the USA 1994. We weren't good enough. I think Poland got there instead of us. So we'd not been in a footballing competition since '92, and that had been in Sweden, and we got kicked out in qualifying rounds. Before that were Italia '90, where we did fucking fantastically and got to semi-finals, and were knocked out on penalties by Germany. So I was 19 then, I was 25 in 1996. So this was my coming of age, really, my coming of age tournament. And the other ones, I mean, when I were aware of the World Cup, 82, my parents weren't going to go to Spain. 86, fucking not going to Spain, not going to Mexico. Sweden, why would you want to go there? It's cold. Missed out on USA. I was 23 then. I couldn't really afford flight tickets over to USA at 23. But this one were here. So that's why nobody decided to go anywhere. And Terry Venables was the man who were going to guide this team. And everybody were worried because he'd got Alan Shearer, who were prolific for Southampton and Blackburn and Newcastle. But he couldn't hit a cow's ass with a shovel when it came to England. And we were thinking, the whole country were thinking, is he going to come good? Is he going to come good? And he fucking did. The lad shone. He shone. And I just cannot begin to describe how good that summer was. It started off around May time. Everybody were getting brought up for the build-up to this competition. And then we started with the Switzerland game. Roy Hodgson, excuse me, Roy Hodgson were in charge of Switzerland, and it were 1-1, and you're like, oh, it's a bit fucking dodgy, this. And then we played Scotland, and we had to beat Scotland. We couldn't have Scotland coming down to Wembley to our competition and beating us. So Seaman saved a penalty from McAllister. Gazza scored that fucking worlder and did the dentist chair because they'd been on a pre-season in Hong Kong. And after it had all finished, they went out on piss. And this were well before mobile phones and pictures on phones, but they'd been collared bit press, and they'd taken photos of Gazza in the dentist chair. And what the dentist chair was a reclining chair, and you leant back in this reclining chair, and you opened your mouth, and people had sort of put shots in your mouth and you had to swallow them. And the All England team were getting pissed up. And there's Gazza on front of papers with all his England shirt, more or less ripped off him, having a right fucking time. And then the press are calling for his head. And when he scored that banger against Scotland, chipped it over Colin Hendry and then volleyed it in back at net. He went down on floor, and his England teammates picked up the water bottles and sprayed him in his mouth, just like he was in dentist chair in Hong Kong. Fucking great moment. And I were in a boozer, and the whole place went fucking wild. It was great. Everybody, I cannot explain to you how everybody were together for those games in England. I didn't see any fighting in pubs. There were no brawling. Everybody were with it. Everybody were together. And then we got that Holland game. Fucking 4-1. To this day, I mean, the 5-1 in Munich against Germany, it were a qualifier, it wasn't a competition. But to this day, what we on, 27 years later? I have never seen England play that well in a competition against such a quality side. I mean, that layoff to Shearer for that last goal, I think it went McManaman, Sheringham, bang, Shearer. That goal were fucking great. And when they were 4-0 up, Scotland were going to qualify. Scotland would have qualified, but then Holland got one back against England, and then Scotland was sent packing. And I think they still blame us for that now. And then we went on to knockout stages. Now, knockout stages get a bit rough, especially when you're hosting it, because there's so much at stake when you're hosting. Because you're out on your ass. You've got through these qualifying rounds, and then once you're into knockout stages, it's winner takes all. And we had Spain. Now, England are terrible at penalties. But you think how much Spain have come on since 1996. Back then, they were worse than us in penalty shootouts. So it was just, I remember we were at my friend Dean's house. I think it was the only game that we watched where we went to somebody's house rather than watch it in a boozer. So we went to Dean's house. Sun were cracking flags outside. Remember, we were all out in his garden at half time on Carlin and Carlsberg. Anyway, we come back in second half, and then it went to extra time. And then penalties. Fucking penalties. And David Seaman were in that awful goalkeeper's top. That yellow thing. You could wear that yellow goalkeeper's top and you could be sick on yourself and nobody would have noticed. It was fucking terrible. The terrible goalkeeping top. I implore you to go and have a look online. Just type in David Seaman 1996 penalty shootout. Spain game, and you'll see it. You could have got David Seaman by the shoulders and just yacked all over him and walked away, and nobody in that fucking room would have known you'd been sick on him. Fucking horrible. And obviously did the trick because it put the Spanish players off. David Seaman needed to save that last goal, and he saved it. And I remember being in Dino's house, and you had to take the shoes off when you went into his mum's house. But he never took his shoes off when he came into my mum's house, so I went, fuck off, I'm not doing it. And he'd been playing hell the entire game. And when it came to penalties, I called, I said, he's going to save it, it's pointless. And nobody'd watch. And fuck it, I'll watch. And it went, and he saved it. He fucking saved it. I remember Dino's living room went fucking wild. And then we went out that night, down to Wesley Hotel. There's all his friends there. There's loads of people I didn't really know. Everybody were together. And then went to Underworld. and it were just pills and alcohol. It were fucking great. What a great night that was. What a great night that was. And then a few days later, fucking Germany. Yeah, and then the summer were over and it was shit. Yeah, we got to the German game again at Wembley, and how we did not win that fucking game is beyond me. Gazza in injury time, and it was golden goal back then. And golden goal is in extra time. If you score a goal, you've won it. There's no running clock down. It was a golden goal. You score a goal, you win it. And that cross that came across him straight in front of goal, Gazza slid for it and he missed it millimetres. And that would have put us in final with Czech Republic. And we'd have beaten them. They've fucking beaten them. And he missed it, and then it went to penalties. Now, they'd got the feathers up about them penalties. Yeah. Fuck it. Let's go back to them Spain penalties. Stuart Pearce in 1990 World Cup had missed. And England got knocked out. It wasn't with his penalty, it was Chris Waddle's penalty. But he was the one that had missed before him. And he was a soccer hard man. He was playing for Nottingham Forest at the time. And he was a real fucking tough nut on pitch. I met him backstage at Leeds Festival a few years later. And everybody were talking to him about that, not that miss, but Euro 96. And I were talking to him about that bin wagon that flipped on top of him. Yeah, we're fucking driving down road in ice. There was a bin wagon. It hit a curb, and the bin wagon just fucking did a full 180 and landed on his roof. They jumped out at cab, gets inside, and fucking Stuart Pearce is just climbing out passenger. He said to me, they want a fucking scratch on me. Not a scratch on me. The car like a pancake. So they want to scratch on me. Anyway, he'd missed and he'd been in tears and he'd been carrying that for 6 years. And then it went to penalties with Spain and Stuart Pearce's hand went up. I'm fucking taking this. I'm taking this. He took it and he scored and he went fucking crackers. He went crackers. And we all went mad in Dean's house. We all went mad. Anyway, going back to the final. Gareth Southgate, who is now the England manager, stepped up for the 6th penalty. Went to the 6th penalty, and he needed to score this. He needed to score this to win. He looked at the ball, gave his nose a scratch. He ran up, missed, and then we're gone. We're out. We're out. Now, that was the only time I didn't watch that game with my friends because I'd taken a job at Yorkshire Evening Post and I was working nights. And I was driving Financial Times up to Edinburgh in this van. And I was waiting for papers to come out. So I walked just out from where printers were at Yorkshire Evening Post into a pub and watched them penalties go in. And he fucking missed. Bastard. What a fucking shame that was. And then the summer were over. And then rains came. And we were all there in autumn. Outside a cafe on a bank holiday Monday. Crying in the rain. The cafe's shut. Summer's over. And it's all gone to shit. But for those short few weeks, those 5 weeks, in the summer of 96, everything in England was the centre of the universe. There was nowhere else in the world I would have rather been than right there at that time. Those 5 weeks, if I could relive any part of my life and go back, it'd be those 5 weeks. And I would take friends that I've made since then, or friends that I have now, I would take those friends back and let them live that 5 weeks with me. When everything in your life is just clicking and there's events and everybody's together and strangers are hugging you, everything was just great for 5 weeks. And I'm not they've been great since, but those 5 weeks, that connectivity that everybody had in those 5 weeks, I've not felt that since. I've not felt that since. And I think it's because I've not been in England. I've not been in England since 1998. Yeah, I've not been in England since 1998 when England had been playing in a football tournament. And 1998 was a World Cup and it was in France. It wasn't in England, so it was a lot different. But that's my summer of 96, and I would say you rest easy, Terry Venables, because you were the main reason that England had a great summer. You and that team. I mean, you can go on thanking all these bands and all those filmmakers and Danny Boyle and directors like that, but it was Terry Venables. Terry Venables made a great summer fantastic. And this episode is my little tribute to Eltel. Now, them that don't know Eltel, Terry Venables, it was just this Cockney wide boy. He knew everything about football. He was an encyclopedia. A likeable fella. Lived well. He had this little paunch, this little stomach on him. Always seemed to have a tan, even when he was living in England. He always seemed to be tanned. You would imagine he was just jetting off somewhere after football had finished on Sunday to lay on a beach in his Speedos and come back for training on Monday or Tuesday. Always had a tan, no matter where he was. Fucking depths of winter in February. Cold, wet Tuesday in Stoke, he's got a tan. He went to Barcelona, got rid of Maradona, brought in Steve Archibald, and won La Liga. Got shut of Maradona. That's how much of a risk that fella would take because he believed in himself. And he took a few risks with England, and it nearly paid off. It nearly paid off. And there's not anybody that I've met, even though Terry Venables were a Southerner, he was a Cockney, have really got a bad word for him. But yeah, I don't know him. I don't know his wife. I don't know his kids. But I heard the tributes to him, and I will just echo them in this episode. Because Terry Venables, wherever you are, if you're listening or not, thank you for that summer. Now, over this last few years, I've been working my tits off. And I've let my fucking friendships go to the wayside because I've just been earning money. So this is a word of warning to you. It went tits up at work on Friday. And then I get in touch with my friends for help. And I feel like a bit of a fucking prick because I've not been getting in touch with them over these last few years because I've just had my head down and my ass up. Fucking giving you all this advice on what to do with your lives. Don't let people annoy you, annoy yourself and all that fucking bullshit. I fucked all my friends off just to earn money to work. Now my kids are older and they don't need me around as much. I'm going to have to rebuild all that shit. And I feel a bit of a prick for going cap in hand asking people to help me this week after just fucking ignoring people for so long. So that will be a lesson to you. Just as I bookmark this episode today. Don't fuck your friends off, because it makes you feel like a cunt when you need help. And I won't be doing that again. So, in way of thanks, we won't be going out with any music tonight. Bollocks, of course we are. See you next week.